Hey, welcome to part 5 of creating 3D medieval boots. In this part we're gonna start the UVs and we are going to work some more on the low poly. So to start off we're just gonna select all the faces and we're gonna do a planar mapping just to map out the UVs. And I'm gonna select all the hard edges and I'm gonna convert these to seams. If you don't have a little button to select all the hard edges, just go into Google and type something like Maya Mel script select hard edges. And this is because wherever you have a hard edge, you need to have a UV seam, otherwise the bake is gonna be messed up. So now where I wanna have a seam, I'm gonna select it, I'm gonna give it some hard edges, and I'm gonna cut the UVs right there. You wanna try to put the seams on places where the cut will be hidden. So right now I'm putting the seam where it's the transition from the ladder to like the ladder back side. And you want to keep an eye on the shading. You can either choose to put a hard edge or a bevel. But if you make a hard edge, you need to cut the UVs there. So you need to decide what's the best for you, which one you prefer. So I'm just going over the whole model and I'm putting hard edges and UV seams. Once you've put all the seams and edges, just unfold it with the unfold brush. You can find this one under tools in the UV window. As you see, the UVs are still messing up, which means that I forgot to cut an edge. So I'm just gonna look for it. So now that we cut the edge and we have a continuing UV seam, we can smooth them out. I'm going to make a new material, and to this material I'm gonna apply a checker map. And for the checker map you wanna have little arrows that point upwards. So now we can easily see the direction of the UVs. You wanna make sure that your UVs are pointing upwards. We can move the UVs around a little bit just to try to get nice straight UVs, where all the arrows are pointing in a straight line. So again, I'm going over my UVs and I'm making sure they all point towards the same direction. If you see that the UVs are messed up, just make some new cuts and hard edges. You want to try to have your UVs as straight as possible. Now that we're done with the base of the UVs, we're gonna go to the second part of this videos, where we are gonna refine the topology. So I'm putting in an extra loop, and this will just make the shading nicer. The shading can also be fixed by baking a normal map, but sometimes you can also just put it in your shading with extra loops, and this will just make it look nice a bit. It's also right to not have this, it depends on your project. So at this point we have a pretty good base, so I'm just gonna mirror it over to the other side. And we wanna do this after we do a base for the UVs, so we don't need to unfold and put the seams twice, we just do it one time. So at this point, where I'm happy with how it's looking, we want to get away from the perfect grid like. We're gonna follow the folds a bit more with a low poly. So using the multi-cut tool, we're gonna cut in some folds. And doesn't matter if you make some triangles, that's okay. Just try to avoid triangles at high place of deformation. We also want to make some quads into two triangles. This is just triangulating it by hand. This is what a game engine will do with every single quad. But if we do this by hand, we can choose the triangulation the quad will have. This way we can make it follow the folds better. So I'm just gonna go over the whole mesh and I'm gonna triangulate some quads, put some triangles in just to follow the shape better. And this is the most boring repetitive part of making a low poly, just following your shape. this point I'm also gonna smooth out some of the topology. Remember, just hold down shift and you can smooth it out. So now we're up to part 3. This is where the fun begins. We're gonna go into ZBrush to our high poly. And we're gonna make our ID map. At this point you just wanna give your high poly some poly paint. And every part that you wanna be able to select in Substance Painter, you're gonna give that a separate color. Like for example, all the ladder I'm gonna make pink. And then all the underlying ladder is gonna be brown. In this way I can easily select that mask inside Substance Painter. So once we're done with that, we have everything with a color. We're gonna merge it all and we're gonna export it to Marmoset. So inside Marmoset, once you have made a bake group, just move your high poly and your low poly in the corresponding maps. Now choose a path where the textures will be baked to. And my test bakes, I like to save these as JPEGs. So now that you have it all set up, just go and press bake. It didn't bake anything because we forgot to press normals. Now just bake it again. Now when we hit the P, we can preview our bake. So I don't like to look at the bake inside Marmoset. I like to do it inside Maya, as it will give you a little bit of a better preview. So just apply a new blend material, and then we're gonna link our bake to it. Make sure you change from bump to tangent space. Now it looks really weird because the color space needs to be on raw. Now it looks normal. And now we can easily preview our bake inside Maya. If you bake again, it's just going to update it. So I'm pretty happy with how the bake was looking. So now I'm gonna go to the other side. I'm gonna move some things into place. I'm gonna speed this up by a lot, because it's just repeating everything we did with the other boot, but applying it to the other boot. So I'm just putting an extra cut to help out with the shading. So I'm just grabbing all the UVs and I'm gonna stretch them out a bit just to fill out the space. I prefer to have a little bit of stretching in the UVs than to waste space. And because we stretch all the UVs, it's not gonna look weird. You want to pay close attention to little corners like these, as they can overlap. Just pull them away and relax them a bit. Now that we have better UVs, we're gonna export the mesh out to marmoset again. And we're gonna do a new bake to see how it looks. And that's it for part 4. Now we're almost done with the low poly and we have a good base to bake. In the next part we're gonna finish the low poly and we're gonna do a final bake. So yeah, that's all. See you in the next one.